Good morning and thanks for joining us. I'm Adam Sexton. For the first time in a decade, Republicans will nominate someone other than Frank Guinta for Congress in the 1st District. The GOP is looking for a winner who can make the seat a little less susceptible to the national trends. And many are wondering if that candidate might be Seacoast tech executive Bruce Crochetier, who joins us here today. Bruce, thanks for joining us.
Nice to meet you, Adam.
So a lot of Republicans want to know sort of what is the foundation of your conservative being? What makes you a conservative?
Well, you know, I'm the American dream. You know, I'm a person that has done it in business. I'm not a politician, and I'm outside the fray. I've always worked hard. I've come from a situation where my grandfather came down from Canada in 1922 as a 17-year-old looking for opportunity. I worked as a leather cutter in the shoe mills of Lawrence, and he gave me hard work and humbleness to kind of move forward, and that's what I've been driving in my campaign.
Tell us about your business. You made yourself a pretty decent living in the tech field.
Yeah, it's never easy. High tech is one of those fields that it's ever changing, and I started in 1993 in the technology sector. In 1998, my wife and I decided to save as much money as we could. We mortgaged our home, and we threw everything in the ring, and we started Focus Technology Solutions. And right now, it's a $50 million information technology solutions company where I have employed hundreds of employees.
So, safe to say you would bring a business perspective to Congress?
Absolutely.
On the flip side of that, a big question in any Republican primary: what's your stance on abortion?
I'm pro-choice. I believe it's a decision of a woman, her family, and her doctor to make. I do not believe in Planned Parenthood nor using taxpayers' monies for abortion.
Who did you support in the 2016 presidential primary?
Donald Trump.
So you were a Trump guy from the beginning?
Yes.
What made you pick him over the other, say, 19 or so that were out there?
So Donald Trump, to me, is a business person as myself. He's actually... I'm glad we supported Donald Trump, and otherwise I've been Hillary Clinton in the seat right now. And I was very avid about his business and economic policies. I think he'd use a different approach at times, but he's shaking things up in Washington, and that's what he said he'd do. So,
safe to say you'd be a strong ally of the president in Congress?
He's paved the way for somebody like myself in business to go in and kind of work hard. I'm Bruce Crochetier. I'm running for Congress in CD1, and I have my ideals and my views, but Donald Trump has paved the way for business people like myself to go in and shake it up even further.
Congress certainly has been sort of looking at this Russia investigation and what's going on there. A lot of people think this is very serious. A lot of Republicans say this is a mountain being made out of a molehill. What's your approach, especially as you would have that oversight role perhaps in Congress?
You know, I think we got to be tough on our adversaries. I think one thing that this nation needs to understand is cybersecurity is becoming a big issue. I think in my industry, it's one of the biggest proponents what companies are looking for, and I think we need to be strong against and be in the offense in cybersecurity. So yes, it is definitely an issue we have to take and look forward with.
Let's say you win. Congressman Crochetier, what is the first piece of legislation you're going to file down there on Capitol Hill?
So I'm a cancer survivor. So for me, preventative medicine, preventative ways of finding ways to get cancer early is something I'm really passionate about. If I did not find or get the cancer eradicated in my situation, I may not be sitting in front of you right now talking to you. So I think healthcare is a very important situation. I think we should take a look at healthcare and make it more affordable for our people.
Are you in the camp that says do away with Obamacare completely, or sort of work within the framework and fix what's there?
Obamacare is an abomination, if you will. So we need to have free market-based solutions that empower consumers, lower costs, and increase the quality of care.
So, for instance, would you keep, though, the provision that allows younger people to stay on their parents' insurance until age 26? Or is that, when we say get rid of Obamacare, that's the whole thing, or would you keep little bits and pieces?
Oh, well, that's something the legislation we have to talk about. I think right now students are going to school till 26 years old in a lot of cases. So in that case, we should probably have a look at keeping it.
Another legislative priority right now on the other side for Democrats involves reducing gun violence. They have any number of ideas out there. Of course, none of these are passing right now at the state or federal level. But is there anything that they've proposed, from universal background checks to the so-called red flag legislation that would aim to sort of take firearms away from people who show escalating signs of violence? Is there anything in that realm that you would sign on to?
So my proponent on gun violence is it's unbelievable. It's horrible that these are happening. I got 2 daughters at Winnicott High School that I am so unbelievable if something happened to them. But I'm a strong proponent of the Second Amendment. I don't believe we need any regulations, any further scenarios against it, and I think it's more of a mental health issue that we have to start taking a look at.
So it's a mental health issue from your perspective. Why, though, do you think this country is the only one in the world that sees regular mass shootings?
I don't know if that's the case. I think that our issue in our country is kids need to be inspired. I think children today are lost in the social media aspect of life, and one of the reasons why I think I am the American dream is I got through and I'm inspired to be the person I am. And I think we need to get kids inspired, and I think if we do that, the opioid issues would be not an issue, and as well as gun violence. So it's really getting the passion in the kid early and getting them amped up, and you know, 4-year schools are not exactly what we have to do. I know that we can always do skill-based, if you will.
You mentioned the opioid crisis. Any new ideas you could bring to bear there, other than, say, perhaps need more funding? What do you think works?
Well, it is more funding in a lot of ways, but we have to support our law enforcement, our first responders in our communities with what they need. Now, I believe our administration in Washington get us $3 million out of $500 million that was earmarked for the situation. We need somebody in Washington to represent us better to get that funding for our opioid issues.
One of the big issues on the Seacoast right now is drinking water. These perfluorochemicals, or PFAS, perfluoroalkyl substances, an emerging contaminant. Yeah. We might see the EPA revise downward its health advisory for drinking water, which would really trigger a bit of a crisis because it's in a lot of the water. What's your perspective there? Big picture, living on the Seacoast, is this a serious problem?
Yes, it is. And on my street alone, so my street, we live in an area that was a pewter mill. And on my street, there's 3 people that have cancer out of 7 homes. So I'm one of them. So we are looking into our water supply system. Hopefully it's not a correlation, if you will, with the water, but I think that we have to look at different ways of finding out if our water is contaminated.
Wow. So this situation in your neighborhood, how did you find out about the history there? Was this something that was a surprise to you after having bought or built a home?
Well, I knew that. Well, actually, there was a perk test done for the school. Actually, Lincoln Ackerman School in Hampton Falls was going to be in that area, but there was a perk test, and the school did not. The school board did not actually provide the situation to be there. So us as residences, we also perked our areas, which is okay to perk. So we decide to live there, that's okay to live there, but it's kind of an uncommon scenario where multiple people in the town had issues with breast cancer. With
Coakley Landfill, the EPA, I mean, the Air Force dumped there, and the Department of Defense has signed off on it. They're sort of out of the loop. But should the federal government be doing more? Should the EPA be doing more? They are going to do this bedrock study, deep drilling, but should more be done, I guess, to try and figure out what exactly is going on with the contamination there?
Well, I think regulations are there. EPA Regulatory Commission has already had the regulations for. I am not for increasing regulations. We need to have smart regulations, not more regulations. So if there's additional regulations, we have to take a look at it and decide if we're going to use them or not. On that same regulatory front, you have a lot of states right now that are experimenting, if you will, with legalizing marijuana. New Hampshire's obviously not there yet, but if you're in Congress, you might have a role in saying whether or not the feds should be cracking down on places like Colorado, Oregon, California, Maine, or Massachusetts that are liberalizing their own state laws. What's your perspective there? Should the states be allowed to experiment, or is it time for the Justice Department to rein this in? Well, I think marijuana is great in situations with cancer patients, if you will. I think medical marijuana works very well, but I think in an opioid crisis in our state, it's something we should just kind of not even talk about at this point. But in terms of should the state should be allowed to move forward, or should the feds crack down? I think it's a state's right. I think we're the 10th Amendment. We're all it's individual rights, it's states' rights. I think that's what we have to continue with and move forward with states and individuals. If elected, you'd be working hand in hand with 2 Democratic senators for at least 2 years. What's an area where you think you could get along with or work with Senators Shaheen and Hassan? And infrastructure is popular, so we're going to set that aside. Is there any other area where you see yourself cooperating with your Democratic counterparts? So, I mean, our situation in our state, we have a governor that's done very awesome things for our state, as well as a legislature that's done very well. There's a huge gap between our Washington representation and what we're doing here in the state. And in fact, our state legislatures have a hard time picking up the phone with our Washington representation. So what I would do is fill that gap. I would like to fill that gap, and I think it's time for a good Republican to match up to with what our administration is. In terms of going to Washington, if you're there, what are voters going to know you for? What are you going to be making headlines on? So I'm an outsider. I'm not a politician. I'm furthest thing from it. I mean, I've built my entire life based on a business standpoint where I balance the budget in my company every year. So I think what they see of me is somebody who's done it in the real world and somebody that's passionate about what he does and trying to uplift people. If I can get one person to kind of be positive about their lives, I've done what I'm supposed to do. So my candidacy and what I'm about is all about that. The message is the same from the Seacoast up into the Mount Washington Valley there. This is an interesting district because it has a lot of different perspectives of people here in the Granite State. It does. I am a hiker. I'm part of the Appalachian Trail, so I love being up north. I was just up there with, I got an endorsement up there, and I love the whole area. I think New Hampshire is diverse that way. We have to keep it diverse. The reason why we're such a great state is the diversity of our landscape.
All right, Bruce Crochetier, we'll see you out on that campaign trail.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.